A school janitor's quiet dedication caught Barron Trump's eye. What he did next changed everything. The sun had barely begun to rise when Ronald James pulled his old, battered sedan into the farthest corner of the Oxbridge Academy parking lot. He always chose the same secluded spot, as if to keep the peeling paint and dented bumper out of sight. With a final sputter, the engine died, and Ronald sighed, gripping the steering wheel for a moment. Another day, another chance to make ends. But he grabbed his thermos from the passenger seat, gave the dashboard a gentle pat, his silent gratitude to the car for holding on another day, and stepped out. The crisp morning air carried only the faint chirp of birds and the distant rumble of a delivery truck. Oxbridge Academy was slowly waking up, and Ronald cherished this quiet moment before the day's chaos began. As he pushed his cleaning cart through the empty corridors, he felt a familiar sense of pride. The floors gleamed under the overhead lights, a result of his meticulous care. Most people never noticed, but that didn't matter to him. Ronald wasn't in it for recognition. To him, every classroom, every hallway, every trash can deserved the same quiet dedication. To the students, he was simply Mr. James, the janitor, with a warm smile and a kind word. He remembered their names, their favorite sports, even their quirks. "Good morning, Marcus. How's that science project coming? Along? Hey, Jenny, that goal you scored yesterday was incredible." These small exchanges, though brief, gave his job meaning. But beyond these walls, life wasn't as polished. Ronald had faced more struggles than most could imagine. He had grown up in a small Florida town where opportunities were scarce. Losing his wife to cancer a decade ago had been the hardest blow of all, leaving him as both mother and father to their 2 children. He worked long hours to keep food on the table, sacrificing his own comfort for their future. His aging sedan was a constant reminder of those sacrifices. Some mornings, it refused to start altogether, forcing him to rely on borrowed rides or long walks. Yet he never let those hardships dampen his spirit. One day at a time, he told himself, gripping the steering wheel as he coaxed the engine back to life. Unbeknownst to him, his quiet resilience and unwavering kindness hadn't gone unnoticed. One student in particular, Barron Trump, had been paying close attention. To most, Barron was just another student at Oxbridge Academy, reserved, a little shy, but always polite. Yet beneath his quiet demeanor was a sharp mind and an even sharper sense of empathy. While his peers debated luxury vacations and designer brands, Barron often lingered on the edges, observing. He had been raised to believe that everyone's story mattered, that actions spoke louder than words. And lately, he had been watching Mr. James. It started with small observations, the way Ronald greeted everyone with a smile, even when exhaustion was written across his face, the careful precision in his work, ensuring every detail was perfect. The quiet moments when he thought no one was watching, like the time Barron saw him replace a broken locker handle before the student even reported it. There was something about Mr. James that stuck with Barron, something that made him want to do more. Ronald James had no idea that his simple acts of kindness were about to set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. Barron Trump noticed the janitor's struggles. What he did next changed everything. Barron had always been observant, noticing things others overlooked. And lately, his attention had been drawn to Mr. James. Every morning, he saw him arrive early, a well-worn coffee thermos in hand, his cleaning cart rattling softly as he navigated the hallways. Barron watched the care with which he did his job, wiping down desks, polishing floors, ensuring the school felt more like a home than just a building. At first, Barron didn't think much of it. After all, it was just Mr. James doing his job. But one afternoon, as Barron waited outside for his ride, he saw something that stuck with him. Across the parking lot, Mr. James was hunched over the hood of his old sedan, tools scattered on the ground. The car had stalled again, faint smoke rising from the engine. With his sleeves rolled up and hands smeared with grease, he worked tirelessly under the brutal Florida sun. Barron watched as the janitor wiped his forehead with a rag, muttered something under his breath, and climbed into the driver's seat after finally coaxing the engine back to life. The image stayed with him. The more Barron noticed, the more questions he had. Why was Mr. James driving a car that barely ran? How did he manage to show up every day with the same warm smile despite what looked like endless struggles? One afternoon, Barron worked up the courage to approach him. He found Mr. James near the lockers, fixing a broken hinge that no one else seemed to have noticed. "Hey, Mr. James," Barron said hesitantly. "Need a hand?" Ronald looked up, surprised, then grinned. "Well, hello there, young man. I think I've got it, but I appreciate the offer." Barron lingered, watching him finish the repair. "You're always fixing things," Barron said after a pause. "Do you ever get tired of it?" Mr. James let out a deep, genuine laugh, the kind that carried both warmth and weariness. "Oh, sure, but someone's got to do it, right? Besides, there's something satisfying about making things work again." That conversation was the first of many. Over time, Barron learned more about the man behind the mop and toolbox. He learned about his two kids, how his son dreamed of becoming a mechanical engineer and his daughter wanted to be a teacher. He heard about Ronald's late wife, the love of his life, and how losing her had shaped him into the man he was today. Mr. James never complained, but Barron could hear the exhaustion in his voice, the subtle weight of the sacrifices he made daily to provide for his family. One day, Barron finally asked the question that had been on his mind since that afternoon in the parking lot. "Mr. James, why don't you get a new car? That one looks like it's ready to give up on you." Ronald chuckled, shaking his head. "A new car, huh? Well, those things cost money, Barron. And money's not something I've got a lot of. Besides, as long as it gets me where I need to go, it's good enough for me." But to Barron, that answer didn't sit right. The more he learned about Mr. James, the more he felt the weight of his story. He wasn't just a janitor. He was a father, a mentor, an unsung hero of the school. He poured his heart into everything he did, asking for nothing in return. Barron couldn't solve all of his problems, but maybe, just maybe, he could do something to make his life a little easier. That night at dinner, he brought it up with his parents. "You know Mr. James, the janitor at school?" he asked, pushing his food around his plate. His father nodded. "The one who's always smiling?" "Yeah, I've seen him." Barron set his fork down, his expression serious. "I think we should help him. His car barely runs, and he works so hard for everyone at school. He never asks for anything, but he deserves more." His mother tilted her head, studying him. "What are you thinking, Barron?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "I want to get him a car. Something reliable, something he doesn't have to fix every weekend just to get to work." His parents exchanged a glance. "That's a big gesture, son," his father said carefully. "Do you have a plan?" "I'll figure it out," Barron replied, determination in his voice. "He's done so much for all of us, I can't just sit by and do nothing." But as determined as he was, he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't do it alone. Once the idea of helping Mr. James took root, Barron couldn't let it go. Every time he saw him mopping floors or fixing broken lockers, the urgency grew. Buying a car wasn't something a teenager could do on a whim. He needed a plan, and more importantly, he needed help, so Barron went back to his parents. "I don't want this to just be from me," he said. And with that, the first step in changing Mr. James's life was set in motion. Over dinner one evening, Barron laid out his plan. "This shouldn't just come from me," he explained. "Mr. James has touched so many lives here. It would mean more if the entire school pitched in." His father leaned back, nodding thoughtfully. "You're right. This isn't just about money, it's about showing appreciation. But you'll need to get people involved. Teachers, students, staff. Are you ready for that?" Barron hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "I'll do whatever it takes." The next day, he set his plan into motion. He started small, approaching a few trusted classmates during lunch. "You know Mr. James, right? The janitor?" he asked, testing the waters. "Of course," one of his friends said. "He's awesome." "Why?" Barron leaned in, keeping his voice low. "I want to get him a new car. His is falling apart, and he works so hard for all of us. I think it's time we did something for him." His friends exchanged surprised glances before the excitement kicked in. "That's huge," one of them said. "How are we supposed to pull that off?" "We'll figure it out," Barron replied. "I'm not asking anyone for a lot, just whatever they can give. If we all chip in, it'll add up." Word spread quickly but quietly. Barron reached out to teachers, coaches, and even the school counselor. The response was overwhelmingly positive. "Mr. James is one of the hardest working people here," one teacher said, slipping Barron a $50 bill. "Count me in." But, even with everyone's contributions, the cost of a new car was steep. That's when his parents stepped in. His father contacted a local car dealership explaining the situation. The dealership manager, touched by the story, offered a brand new red Jeep SUV at a significant discount. "We'll cover the rest," Barron's father said. "You just focus on making this special for him." With the car secured, the focus shifted to the reveal. Barron wanted it to be a moment Mr. James would never forget. After brainstorming with his friends and teachers, they decided the upcoming Friday assembly would be the perfect stage. Everyone would be there, making it the ideal time to show their gratitude. Preparations kicked into high gear. Students created a massive banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. James," in the school's colors, covered in messages of appreciation. Teachers coordinated the logistics, ensuring Ronald would attend without suspecting anything. Meanwhile, Barron spent nights pacing his room, rehearsing his speech, determined to make every word count. As Friday approached, excitement buzzed through the hallways. Students whispered about the plan, careful not to let Mr. James overhear. Even the staff pitched in, sharing their own stories. "He once stayed late to help me find a student's lost backpack," a teacher recalled. "He didn't have to, but he did it anyway." By Thursday afternoon, everything was set. The car, freshly washed and gleaming, sat hidden behind the gym. The ID banner was hung, the speeches finalized, and every detail meticulously planned. But as the big day loomed, nervous energy crept in. "What if it doesn't go the way I'm imagining?" Barron asked his mother that evening. She smiled, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Barron, this isn't just about the car. It's about showing him how much he's valued, and that's something no one can misunderstand." Friday morning arrived, and Oxbridge Academy buzzed with anticipation. Students filed into the auditorium, their excitement palpable. Backstage, Barron clutched his note cards, taking deep breaths to steady himself. Peeking out at the crowd, he spotted Mr. James quietly taking a seat near the back, as unassuming as ever. The sight filled Barron with determination. This wasn't just about giving a car. It was about honoring a man who had selflessly given so much to everyone, never asking for anything in return. As the curtains rose and the room fell silent, Barron took a deep breath. Would Mr. James truly understand how much he meant to all of them? Meanwhile, for Ronald James, Friday morning felt like any other. The air was crisp as he parked his old sedan in its usual spot at the far end of the school lot. The engine wheezed and groaned before sputtering to a halt. He sat for a moment, taking a deep breath, mentally preparing for another long day. Little did he know, today would be anything but ordinary. Mop buckets to push, floors to polish, classrooms to tidy. Ronald James loved the rhythm of it. Hard work had never bothered him. It was his way of keeping things in order, even when life outside the school walls felt chaotic. But today was different, even if Ronald didn't know it yet. Around mid-morning, as he wheeled his cleaning cart down the hallway, the headmaster's voice crackled over the intercom. "Good morning, students and staff. Please report to the auditorium for a special assembly. We look forward to seeing you all there." Ronald barely registered the announcement. Assemblies were routine at Oxbridge Academy, and they rarely involved him. He figured he'd use the quiet time to get ahead on maintenance work. Then, a teacher approached him with a smile. "You should come too, Mr. James. You're going to want to see this." Reluctantly, he followed the flow of students and staff into the packed auditorium, slipping into the back row, hoping to blend into the crowd. The air buzzed with excitement, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. The headmaster took the stage, greeted by enthusiastic applause. Today's assembly isn't about academics or announcements, he began. It's about celebrating a member of our community. That piqued Ronald's interest, though he still had no idea what was coming. Then Barron Trump walked onto the stage, holding a stack of note cards. Ronald recognized him, the quiet, observant student who always greeted him politely in the hallways. Ronald smiled faintly, assuming the boy must have achieved something noteworthy. "Good morning, everyone," Barron began, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I'm here today because there's someone at this school who deserves recognition, someone who makes this place better every single day." Ronald shifted in his seat, brow furrowing. Who could he be talking about? "I'm talking about Mr. James." The room erupted in applause. Ronald froze. His hands gripped the edges of his chair as he stared at the young man on stage. Barron smiled, waiting for the cheers to settle before continuing. "Mr. James isn't just our janitor. He's the person who shows up every morning to make sure our classrooms are spotless, our hallways are clean, and our school feels like home. He's the one who fixes what's broken, whether it's a locker, a leaky faucet, or even our spirits when we're having a bad day." The words hit Ronald like a wave. He had always done his work without expecting thanks, but hearing it acknowledged so openly felt overwhelming. The lights dimmed slightly, and a video began to play on the massive screen behind Barron. A montage of clips and photos appeared. Ronald mopping floors, repairing broken chairs, carrying supplies. Interspersed were interviews with students and staff sharing what he meant to them. "He always has a smile for you," one student said. "He never complains, even when we make his job harder," another admitted sheepishly. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but Ronald couldn't bring himself to laugh. His throat tightened as he tried to process what was happening. By the time the video ended, the entire auditorium was on its feet, clapping and cheering. Barron stepped forward again. "Mr. James, we know you never ask for anything, but we see you. We see how hard you work, how much you care, and how you give so much of yourself to this school. Today we want to give something back to you." He gestured toward the side of the stage. The double doors swung open, revealing a gleaming red Jeep SUV parked beneath a massive banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. James." The room erupted in cheers. Ronald's jaw dropped. His mind struggled to catch up with what his eyes were seeing. Barron turned toward him, smiling. "Mr. James, this is for you. From all of us." The spotlight shifted to Ronald, who still hadn't moved. A teacher touched his shoulder gently, urging him to stand. Slowly he rose, his legs trembling as he made his way to the stage. The applause thundered around him, but all Ronald could focus on was the car and the faces of the students and staff who had made this moment happen. When he reached the stage, Barron extended the keys to him. Ronald hesitated, his hands shaking before finally taking them. And for the first time in a long time, he was at a complete loss for words. Ronald glanced at the crowd, then back at the gleaming red Jeep, his breath unsteady. He gripped the keys tightly, as if trying to ground himself in reality. I don't know what to say," he stammered, his voice barely audible over the lingering applause. He wiped at his eyes, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions threatening to consume him. "You didn't have to do this," he finally managed, shaking his head. I just do my job." But as he looked out at the sea of smiling faces, students, teachers, staff, he realized this moment wasn't just about the car. It was about the lives he had touched, the quiet kindness he had offered, and the community that had come together to remind him that his efforts had never gone unnoticed. For what felt like an eternity, Ronald stood frozen on stage, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The applause had softened, but the energy in the room remained electric. Slowly he stepped forward, running a trembling hand along the Jeep's polished surface. The bright red paint gleamed under the stage lights, a stark contrast to the battered old sedan he had left in the parking lot that morning. His throat tightened, and when he finally turned back to face the crowd, his eyes shimmered with tears. The auditorium hushed, waiting. I don't know what to say," he began again, his voice thick with emotion. This is more than I ever could have imagined. I don't even know how to thank you." He paused, scanning the faces before him, the students who had greeted him in the halls, the teachers who had nodded in quiet appreciation, the staff who had shared countless early mornings with him. "I've always believed that kindness isn't about recognition," he continued, his voice growing steadier. "It's just something you do, because it's the right thing. And to see all of you come together like this, it means more than I can ever put into words." The crowd erupted into applause again, but Ronald lifted a hand, signaling he wasn't finished. "You know," he said, his voice softer now, "when my wife passed away 10 years ago, I didn't think I'd ever feel this kind of joy again. She was my rock, my partner. Losing her left a hole in my heart that I didn't think anything could ever fill." He swallowed hard, taking a steadying breath. "But I had 2 kids to raise, and I knew I had to keep going. For them." The room fell into a hush, the weight of his words settling over them. "Every morning when I wake up, I think about them. They're the reason I do what I do, why I work so hard. I want them to see that no matter what life throws at you, you keep pushing forward. You keep giving, even when you don't have much to give." He glanced down at the keys in his hand, his fingers tightening around them. "And now, because of all of you, because of this incredible gift, I can give them a little more. I can get to work without worrying if my car will break down. I can take my daughter to her dance recital without wondering if we'll make it on time. This isn't just a car. It's a blessing, one that will change our lives in ways you can't imagine." Tears streamed down his face now, and as he looked out at the audience, he saw many wiping their own eyes. He turned to Barron, his voice raw with gratitude. "Barron, I don't know how you thought of this," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "But you did something extraordinary. You saw me. You saw the work I do, and you cared enough to make this happen. That means more than I can ever say." Without hesitation, Ronald pulled Barron into a hug, holding him tightly as the auditorium erupted once more in cheers and applause. When they finally broke apart, Ronald turned back to the microphone. "To everyone who made this possible, students, teachers, parents, you've reminded me of something I almost forgot. No matter how tough life gets, there's always good in the world. There are always people who care." The headmaster stepped forward, placing a hand on Ronald's shoulder. "Mr. James, this school is lucky to have you. You're not just a part of this community, you're the heart of it. And today we are all here to celebrate you." The roar of applause that followed was deafening. Students stood on their chairs, cheering and clapping while teachers wiped away tears. Ronald looked out at the crowd, his heart swelling with gratitude so profound it felt almost unreal. For years he had worked quietly, believing his efforts went unnoticed. But today, standing on that stage, he realized just how much his presence had mattered. And as students began approaching the stage, shaking his hand, hugging him, thanking him, Ronald knew one thing for certain. Kindness had never been about recognition. But in this moment he had never felt more seen. Ronald's children, who had been invited as part of the surprise, rushed onto the stage, their faces glowing with pride. His son wrapped an arm around him, beaming. "Dad, you deserve this," he said, his voice filled with admiration. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, Ronald took a quiet moment to slide into the driver's seat of the Jeep. His hands ran over the steering wheel, marveling at how solid it felt. No rattles, no groans, no sense that it might fall apart at any moment. His daughter climbed into the passenger seat, laughing as she explored the dashboard and all its modern features. "This is amazing, Dad. It's like a dream." Ronald smiled, a deep sense of relief washing over him. The weight of years of struggle, of long hours and quiet sacrifices, seemed to lift just a little. "It is," he said softly. "And it's all because of them." But as he drove out of the parking lot later that day, he realized something. The car was just the beginning. The real gift wasn't in the metal, the wheels, or even the freedom it would bring. It was in the reminder that his work, his kindness, and his sacrifices had not been in vain. As the assembly ended, students poured out of the auditorium, their excitement still buzzing in the air. but many lingered, waiting for a moment with Mr. James. Some shook his hand, others gave him quick hugs, and a few simply looked up at him with tear-filled eyes and said, "Thank you, Mr. James," before hurrying away. Overwhelmed, but smiling, Ronald stood near the stage, his children clinging to his sides, their own eyes shining with pride. Then a shy sophomore stepped forward, hesitating before holding out a folded piece of notebook paper. "Mr. James," she said softly, "I just wanted to give you this." Before he could respond, she disappeared into the crowd. Curious, he unfolded the note. "Thank you for always being so kind. There were days I felt invisible, but your smile reminded me that someone saw me. I hope today showed you how much you mean to all of us." Ronald read the words twice, his throat tightening. It wasn't just about the car or the applause, it was this. The quiet acknowledgement of the little things he had done, the moments of kindness he thought had gone unnoticed. Later that afternoon, as he prepared to leave, the red Jeep sat waiting in the staff parking lot, a stark contrast to the tired, said in it replaced. His children climbed into the back seat, their laughter filling the air. "It even smells new," his daughter exclaimed, running her hands along the upholstery. Ronald paused before getting in, turning to look back at the school. The day's events replayed in his mind. The cheers, the speeches, Barron's steady voice as he spoke about the impact one person could have. For years, Ronald had walked these hallways, quietly doing his work, never expecting recognition. But today had shown him that no act of kindness, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed. As he drove home, the car hummed smoothly beneath him, a far cry from the sputtering groans he was used to. His son leaned forward from the back seat, grinning. "You know, Dad, this car is awesome," he said. "But what's even cooler is that everyone loves you so much. I mean, they really love you." Ronald glanced at his son in the rearview mirror, his heart swelling. "It's not about being loved, son," he said thoughtfully. "It's about doing what's right, even when no one's watching. And sometimes, when you least expect it, you find out that people were watching all along." That evening, after the excitement of the day had settled, Ronald sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window. The red Jeep gleamed in the driveway, bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. From the living room, he could hear his children talking excitedly about their plans for the weekend. For the first time in years, he felt a deep, unshakable sense of peace. He thought of the note from the student, now tucked safely in his pocket, and the way Barron had described him during the assembly. It wasn't about the car. It was about what it symbolized. Ronald realized that every small act of kindness, every extra effort, and every quiet moment of care had created a ripple effect. The students, the teachers, even the parents, they had noticed. And today, they had given back in a way that left him humbled and deeply moved. In the days that followed, the story of the assembly spread beyond the walls of Oxbridge Academy. Students shared videos of the moment on social media, and soon, the story gained traction online. People from all over commented, sharing their own stories of unsung heroes who had changed their lives. Ronald was stunned by the attention, but grateful for the chance to inspire others. If his story encouraged even one person to show kindness or gratitude, then it was all worth it. Reflecting on the day, he realized that the most valuable lesson wasn't the one he had learned. It was the one the students had demonstrated. Gratitude has the power to transform. It connects people, lifts them up, and creates change far beyond a single moment. A simple acknowledgement of someone's hard work and dedication can spark something greater than any material gift. For Ronald, the red Jeep would always be a reminder of the community that had embraced him, not just for what he did, but for who he was. And for the students, that day would serve as a lesson in the power of kindness, of coming together to celebrate the Mayo, people who make their world better, one small act at a time. As the sun set on that unforgettable day, Ronald sat on the porch with his children, watching them laugh and talk about the future. He smiled, knowing that the best lessons aren't taught in classrooms, they're lived through moments like these. "This isn't just about me," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "It's about all of us. Kindness is contagious. And if we keep it going, who knows what it can do? So let's take a moment to reflect on this story and ask ourselves, who in our lives deserves a thank you? A kind word? Even just a smile? Because as Ronald's story reminds us, even the smallest gestures can lead to extraordinary moments. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of kindness and community. Together, we can create a world where no good deed goes unnoticed because kindness isn't just a gift. It's a legacy,